Hello, I'm Donald McIntyre of Nation.com. This is Nation Live. Joining us is Vitalik Buterin, inventor and project leader of Ethereum. Hello, Vitalik. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thank you very much for doing this. Vitalik, I wanted to talk first generally about the project, and I see that
hmm
it has four components. It has the blockchain, which is Ethereum, and then I see that it has a messaging system called Whisper, then Swarm and Mist.
hmm
They all have a different function. So I wanted to ask you what is the logic and why did you decide to start these four components?
Okay, so the first component of Ethereum, I would say, is the Ethereum blockchain. So
Mhm,
that's the whole idea of this Turing-complete arbitrary state blockchain that I came up with back in November 2013.
mhm,
So the idea behind that was to take some of the ideas that were behind some of the existing what were Crypto 2.0 platforms, so they weren't really calling themselves that back then, and try to come up with something more general. So instead of having a platform that has just some small number of features and that's all that it can do. You have a platform with a built-in programming language, and theoretically in that programming language people can write whatever features they want.
mhm,
So that's probably the core of the Ethereum platform, and initially it was basically the only thing that we were doing.
mhm,
Then a few months later, actually about half a year later, we came up with the idea that there should be this concept of an ether browser. So there should be some kind of browser in which people can easily write. Also, the interface side and the sort of client side of decentralized applications. So how the interface would look, and potentially would any kind of computation be done locally and so forth.
This
So
is this is Mist, no, the browser.
yes, well, yes, this is originally it was called the Ether browser,
Okay.
and eventually we renamed it to Mist, and we're sort of moving somewhat away from calling it a browser. I mean, it technically is a browser in a lot of ways, but it's more accurately, I guess, viewed as a way of accessing applications, and not so much as a way of looking through web pages.
Okay. And then you have two components. One is a messaging system and another one is a file system. What are the functions of those two?
So Whisper, the messaging system. So the idea behind Whisper is that there's a lot of applications that, I mean, first of all, there's a lot of peer-to-peer applications that don't use the blockchain at all. So something like decentralized email might be an example of that. The second thing is that there's some applications that use the blockchain for some computation, but then do a lot of computation off-chain because it's more reliable to do things off-chain. So the problem is, for all of these applications, the blockchain is expensive and there's a lot of communication going on. So if all the communication was being done through the blockchain, it would just become extremely expensive. So the idea is that we realize that there just has to be some kind of way for users to communicate without actually sending everything through the chain. So the communication method had to be off-chain. So that's basically the idea behind Whisper. It's a way for nodes in the Ethereum network, or a way for applications in the Ethereum network, whether it's different instances of the same application, could be different applications, for them to send messages through each other just directly through the peer-to-peer network.
And I guess that the same reasoning applies for
Mhm.
form in the case of files. If somebody wants to create, for example, a video app to store the videos, you would use Swarm.
So Swarm is actually even a bit more expansive than that. So the ultimate goal of Swarm is basically to serve as a sort of distributed content delivery network for all of the client-side data in an application. So right now, like when you're accessing an Ethereum dapp, that would be in HTML and JavaScript,
Hmm.
but the HTML and JavaScript would still be stored on someone's server. So so it's still technically not fully decentralized, and technically the person who's controlling that server can still change that particular tab. So when we move over onto Swarm, what we'll have is actually have all of the files associated with the application, including the HTML and the JavaScript, including images, including everything else, also stored on the same distributed network. And then people just download off of that instead. So the whole thing will basically survive without any servers at all.
And is the idea to for I would call it like a suite
Mm-hmm.
suite of components.
Mm-hmm.
Is the idea for them to be perfectly compatible Because if you use, for example, BitTorrent, it wouldn't be that compatible.
So I would say the idea is for all of them to be general on their own. So
Okay.
the thing with BitTorrent, the problem with BitTorrent is not that it's not somehow not compatible with Mist or not compatible with the Ethereum network. The problem with BitTorrent is that it's not designed to be a distributed content delivery network protocol. It's designed to be a protocol for sending large files over. So, if I have some kind of 100 megabyte file and I want to download it for a bunch of people, then I can do that with BitTorrent. The problem with BitTorrent is that the protocol itself is not particularly fast. So, you could download a file that's like a gigabyte long in 2 minutes if you have a megabyte per second internet connection. But if you're looking at a file something like 1 kilobyte, 10 kilobytes, then there's still a large amount of latency involved, and even downloading a very tiny chunk could potentially take like up to a significant fraction of a minute. So we wanted a protocol that's sort of more optimized for the use case of fetching small pieces of data very quickly.
Okay, so everything is more optimized. If I'm an entrepreneur and I want to build a service using the whole Ethereum platform, so does that mean what you described does that mean that I can have components of each of the four pieces of Ethereum, and they can all work together? I could have an app, for example, that uses messaging, the blockchain, and large files at the same time.
Yeah.
And everything would be visible to the end user through Mist. Is that the idea?
Yeah.
Okay. So for developers and entrepreneurs creating applications, it's not going to necessarily be like Skype or Bitcoin that you download a client and you operate it from the client. It's going to be a
Right.
general.
So the comment that I usually make is that in Bitcoin, the Bitcoin client is the Bitcoin wallet. In Ethereum, the Ethereum wallet is an application inside the Ethereum client.
Again.
So in Bitcoin, the Bitcoin client and the Bitcoin wallet are the same thing, right? In Ethereum, the Ethereum wallet is just one application that lives inside the Ethereum client, which is Mist.
Yeah, that makes me wonder then, where is the client going to be? Where is the server software? If I have a browser, where is it going to be?
The client itself. So Mist itself is a desktop application. So you would download Mist.
And you're gonna type an address and go to my Ethereum wallet, for example.
Well, the Ethereum wallet would actually be one of the applications that we have just inside of Mist by default. But for like most other applications, yeah, you would just type in something into the URL bar.
Okay. So you mentioned that, for example, Swarm and Whisper are going to have their own protocols, and the messages, for example, on Whisper are going to be off blockchain. If I build an application that requires a lot of memory and storage, is that going to use the blockchain?
So it depends on what you need with memory and storage, right? So Swarm is perfectly good for storing any kind of chunks of data that you want stored. And you could also actually have data stored in the individual clients or inside of the individual applications that are using Mist. So, but if you want to store something that you want to be guaranteed will be accessible by everyone and even accessible by other applications that are on the blockchain, then you want to store it on the blockchain.
The way I see it is that the network is going to be used by humans, and then you're going to have miners, and then you're going to have contracts also that are going to operate by themselves potentially. But if I see that the miners are going to provide the computing power and maybe the memory, am I right?
So there's going to be a lot of nodes that are providing this kind of service on the network. So miners are going to be maintaining the blockchain. Now for Whisper, theoretically any node that's on the network can be part of the Whisper network and it can help send messages across. And for Swarm, Right now, the current idea basically is that every full node helps store some of the files. So
Okay.
if you download some particular file, then you just automatically become a seeder for that file, and then other people could theoretically start downloading from you.
Perfect. So that means that collectively all the computers, including miners and just laptops like mine, etc., we're all going to
Yeah.
contribute to a collective computing system.
Yeah.
It's going to be like a data center.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Excellent. Those were the questions, Vitalik. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye.